It's been a big week in politics, and it's only Tuesday. Thankfully, we have party elders, Bill Shorten and Christopher Pyne, to help us make sense of the headlines. Gentlemen, welcome. Clearly, you wouldn't be very welcome in Clacton, so I'm glad you're with me.
Exactly. Well, I think when she said all politicians lie, without exception, except for Bill and myself, I think she hasn't met us.
She just hasn't met us. I agree. Although
she hasn't met us.
I do love Count Binface.
Yes, well, we'll come to Count Binface in a moment, but let's start with our own business, not Clacton's business. Pauline Hanson, obviously, returned from Europe today. We just saw that in Jacob's story. She said Australians are sick of politicians who only talk to people who already agree with them. Bill Shorten, is that a reasonable defence of her involvement with notorious criminal and Islamophobe activist Tommy Robinson on her trip to Europe?
No, I think that's probably retrofitting the logic. Robinson is a rogue. I wonder if he'd even get a visa to visit Australia. I think even Nigel Farage said he would give Robinson a swerve, so that's probably an error of judgment. But anyway, that's up to her and her voters. I think voters want, I don't think they're happy with the system, but I don't think she should assume that her 27 or 30% of people now who say they want to support One Nation all are the same as her 6 to 7% rusted on hardline true believer vote of the past. I think some of the people who are looking to her now are sick of the system and they're hurting, but I think they would be perturbed by dusting off the bones of a white Australia policy. I think that'll give people pause for thought.
Christopher, do you think that sort of association, Tommy Robinson, she also met far-right MP Rupert Lowe, who has a deportation policy that includes deporting citizens. Do you think that Bill Shorten is right, that these associations won't work for those voters who have clearly switched to One Nation, late last year, this year?
Well, I think Bill's right in as much as the voters will have the final say on Pauline Hanson and One Nation. What we're seeing, of course, is after the first blush of the romance with One Nation, which started last year after the Bondi massacre, and the South Australian election was unfortunately the first cab off the rank, we're now seeing a great deal more scrutiny of One Nation and Pauline Hanson and her other senators, Malcolm Roberts and so forth. And as a consequence, of course, the things that they say and the policies that they're announcing are coming under scrutiny because, of course, she is outpolling the Liberal Party right now. So that's going to continue. And Pauline, to her credit, is not shying away from the debate. But voters who vastly, overwhelmingly describe themselves as being in the centre, I don't believe by election day will be voting for One Nation in the numbers that are currently being seen in the polls.
All right, Christopher, I want to stay with you and ask you about Barnaby Joyce. There's been a lot of attention on him today for remonstrating against his barking dog during our interview. To be fair, I did check, and that dog is a Staffy Collie Cross, which is a breed that demands a lot of attention, to be fair. But the actual context of the question that we were talking about at the time was whether or not Barnaby Joyce is OK with where Pauline Hanson is taking him. You know him. Do you really believe that he is comfortable with these sorts of associations we're discussing?
Well, if Barnaby needs a needy dog, he should try a West Highland Terrier. I have two of them, Scout and Archibald, and they're very needy. Of course, Barnaby could have been worse. He could have set fire to his hair on national television, and it would be getting a lot of coverage today. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I've got a couple of firefighters from the US and the Gold Coast who could help him with that, because there's a conference on there. But getting back to your question, which is more importantly...
Indeed.
Look, one of the questions that was asked when Barnaby defected to One Nation by Matt Canavan was how will Barnaby cope if things go off the rails, if Pauline Hanson or other senators don't stay within the guardrails of the norm of Australian politics. And we are starting to see that now. Some of the comments being made are obviously not mainstream by other senators within One Nation, and Barnaby is having to deal with that. He's made his choice. The question is, can he go back? Now, look, Barnaby can do almost anything. Nothing would surprise me. if he went back to the National Party, especially now that David Littleproud's not the leader. I don't have any inside information, but nothing would surprise me if this continues with some of these less mainstream comments being made.
Bill Shorten, what do you think? Does this Barnaby Joyce line up with the Barnaby Joyce that you knew, albeit from the other side?
We've had plenty of disagreements, but I don't think he is a white Australia policy guy at all. I'm not sure how he... I mean, I know him. I don't think he holds all of the same views that, say, Malcolm Roberts has, or some of the things said about the white Australia policy. I think he'd be uncomfortable. He can speak for himself. He's a big boy, but my hunch is he would be pretty uncomfortable. But I think it's a presage. Listen, there's people pretty interested in Pauline Hanson, and, you know, she's got people's interest, as Chris says. I think she's going to increasingly feel a bit of a pincer movement. Some of the stuff which you said about making some workers are lazy and they're always on the phone and they should be easy to sack. I think she might... Her strength is her perceived longevity and her authenticity, but I think there'd be Labor battlers who are saying, well, I don't want to make it easier for me to be sacked. And I think sooner or later, and I'd welcome Chris's view on this if time permits, when are the Liberals going to unleash Andrew Hastie? I think he is the right-wing antidote in the Liberals. I think he's a formidable communicator, and, you know, I think she could find her base being chipped away if they ever let Andrew Hastie out, and also from the left on some of her employment attitudes. Anyway, I mean, there's a long way to play out in this.
Let's bring you in on this. Just briefly, what do you think about letting loose Andrew Hastie? He's made it clear that he didn't have the votes to win the leadership last time round. Is there a letting him loose?
Well, just quickly, as Bill points out, look, I think the flirtation of some Liberals with cozying up to One Nation or tacking towards the far right to seemingly protect in their own perception their seats is over. We've seen Angus Taylor taking the gloves off in the last fortnight when it comes to One Nation, particularly over things like the White Australia policy, monoculture, the effect that One Nation would have on the economy. And Andrew Hastie clearly has very strong views about taking on One Nation. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that continues, and he is given more and more latitude to do so. So I think that sort of initial shock that the Liberal Party felt from December through to about April is well and truly over, and the Liberals realise that if they're going to be around into the future, they actually have to fight both Labor on the left and One Nation on the right if they're going to survive.
Bill Shorten, we just heard before from Peter Beattie, who says that the Labor Party is partly responsible for One Nation's rise because they are not providing solutions for people. Is that a reasonable analysis from Peter Beattie?
Well, clearly, there's dissatisfaction with all the mainstream parties.
But do you think that the Labor Party has let people down by not offering solutions, not performing in a way that is providing those solutions to people? That's Peter Beattie's line.
I haven't changed my vote to One Nation, but I would say that, and I think a lot of Labor voters haven't, but there are some Labor voters who are hurting. They feel that politics isn't working for them. So I do think it's important. I mean, one thing which Hanson has, whether or not it's deserved, you know, people believe it, that she's seen as authentic. I think people want to see the mainstream political parties, they want to know what hill that a politician would die on. What is something which is sufficiently of important conviction to them that they'd actually stand and fight, even if it wasn't popular. I mean, I do a hat tip to the housing policy of the government. That's not totally popular, but at least that's showing a bit of fight. And so I think people want out of modern politicians, no matter what party or colour, they want to see politicians of conviction who stand and fight for things they believe in.
So let's move to the on a matter of conviction or not, depending on where you stand. Labor conference begins this week. Bill, just briefly, do you miss them?
No, I've been to enough
I
of
could
them.
answer that question.
I wish them very well. To Anthony, I wish a trouble-free, hassle-free, you know, conference. That's what you want. But on the other hand, you know, it's an important gathering. It's the oldest political party in Australia. It's still meeting after 100 years. That's something. Yeah,
well, there are rumours that the government's going to go back to the once very popular issue, well, recently popular issue of a tax on gas exports. You're out of the business now. Can you honestly say you don't support that? Are you in favour of it?
Yeah, I think probably the time has arrived to consider reviewing the taxation on gas. So yes, I think it's I think there's a national appetite. I mean, the government's paring back on things like the NDIS. That's necessary, I get. But I think there's a lot of people saying, what about the gas companies? And I think the timing for a future gas tax, not one which rips up previous contracts, that would be sovereign risk. But I think in the future, Aussies are saying, how is it fair that gas companies are making such a big profit, and, you know, why don't they share more of it with the people? So I think probably the time is right to have that discussion.
On your side of the equation, Christopher Pyne, I saw that you attended the crowd-funded AUKUS inquiry and actually said some quite surprising things. You said that AUKUS won't be delivered on time. What makes you so sure that that's the case?
Well, I thought I should go
surprising that you said it, not the facts of what you were saying, to be clear.
Well, I decided I should go to the AUKUS public forum despite the fact that it's a bit of a left fest, because I'm always telling everyone to defend AUKUS. So I can't sort of tell everyone to defend AUKUS and then not put my money where my mouth is when I'm given the chance to do so. And what I actually said... Thank you, Bill. And what I actually said was that the national security capability delivered by AUKUS is the #1 priority. And whether it's delivered on time or on budget, it's important, but it's not nearly as important as getting the capability. And of course, it's easy to say, will it be delivered on time or on budget? This is a program that's going to be over several decades. Whether it's delivered on time or on budget, it'd be heroic to be able to make that prediction today. The likelihood is there'll be new capabilities developed that'll make it more expensive. And it's quite possible that things that'll happen that are out of our control, that means it won't be delivered on time. My point was, that's not very important. What's important is the 8 submarines that will defend our nation and be an enormous fillip to our capability in the event of a war in the Indo-Pacific.
So the joy of being out of politics and being able to speak the truth, the two of you. But I'm just going to end on the joy of Count Binface. We just saw a little bit of him in his contest against Nigel Farage in Clacton in the by-election that Farage has brought on. Bill Shorten, you're a bit of a fan of the bin. What's your favourite policy of his rather marvellous manifesto that I've got here, if anybody wants to look it up? One chance to save Clacton. Go ahead.
I think he's the antidote to democratic politics. I think Count Binface has got a great sense of humour. I know more of his policies than I do of the coalition policies, but my favourite is that he wants to nationalise model railways. And as a housing minister, I love that he says that if you vote for him, he promises to build at least one affordable housing house in his time. I think he's under-promising, and he probably will over-deliver.
But is there something? I know that he's a comedian. He's a professional comedian. But is there something here in a message about authenticity that brings all of the strands of this conversation, or almost all of them, together? That there is something about authenticity that might be missing in politics.
I think he is at the moment, one of the criticisms of politicians is they take themselves very seriously. And people are a bit over people just being up themselves and taking themselves too seriously. I think he makes us laugh, and I think that's a necessary pressure valve. We live in a world where everyone's shouting at each other, everyone thinks everyone else is the enemy, whereas I think Count Binface gives a real alternative. He just says, hey, I'm here, but let's not take ourselves too seriously. I reckon that's a great thing.
On that note, and thank you for your frankness on gas, Bill Shorten, and your continued frankness on AUKUS, Christopher Pyne. It's a delight to have you both, and one day we'll get you both on with Binface. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Cheerio. See ya.